Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Let us begin with a prayer. This is from the famous hymn of Shankaracharya. This hymn is familiar to some of you. It's called Shiva Manasa Puja. Puja means worship. Manas means mind. Manasa Puja means mental worship. Ritualistic worship is done with many offerings, chanting mantras, keeping a picture, image, or photo of the deity. That is ritualistic worship. The same worship is done mentally, visualizing all those things. You can do it anywhere. Manasa Puja. This Shiva Manasa Puja for offering to Lord Shiva. This is one of the stanzas from that hymn. This is on page 186 of this book, The Universal Prayers. The second one on page 186. Om Atmatvam Girijamati Sachara Prana Shriram Graham Pujate Vishayopabhogarachana Nidra Samadhisthitihi Sanchara Padayo Pradakshina Vidhi Stotrani Sarvagiro Yadyat Karma Karomi Tattadakilam Shambho Tavaradhanam. O Lord Shambho, Shiva, you are my very self. You reside in me as my innermost self. And my mind here means intellect, thinking power, discriminating power, is the Divine Mother Girija, Parvati herself, your divine consort. My Prana Shakti, vital force. Prana is one, but it performs many different functions. Pancha Prana, 5 functions. These Prana Shakti, the vital force in my body, are the eternal companions. As long as I live, they are with me. The moment they leave, I have to leave also. Prana Shariram Graham Puja. Shariram Graham. My body is your abode, where you dwell. Prana Shariram Graham Puja Te Vishayopabhogarachana. And all the activities that I do with my sense organs, with the sense objects, those are all your worship. Whatever action I do with my mind, speech, and body, sense organs, they are all done as your worship. Nidra samadhi sthitihi. Even when I sleep, it can be compared to a samadhi, total absorption in you. Sanchara pradayo pradakshina vidhi. When I move about with my feet from one place to another, that can be thought of, that is offered as circumambulation, going around you, parikramanam. Stotrani sarva giro. All the speech, everything that I speak is done as your worship, as the description of your chanting of your glories. Yad yad karma karomi tat tadakilam. Whatever work I do with my mind, speech, and sense organs, all those activities, O Lord, Shambho Tavaradhanam, is all done as your worship. Everything we do, including every breath we take, every word we speak, every step we take, is all his worship, or must be done in that spirit. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om peace. May there be peace in our hearts. Adhyatmika Shanti. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings. Adi Bhautika Shanti. And may there be peace everywhere in nature. Adi Daivika Shanti. Kumar, that light is not on. Middle one, middle switch. This. Yeah. Yeah, now it is better. Last time we were studying the first verse in chapter 16. Chapter 16 is called Daivasara Sampat Vibhaga Yoga. Sampat means wealth. We all have two kinds of wealth. We are not referring to material wealth, money, property, not that kind of wealth. That's temporary. The real wealth we possess are our virtues, the good qualities. Those are divine virtues. All of us have, to some extent, some more, some less. The divine qualities are there in every being. Even in the most wicked person, there is some good quality. And we also have negative qualities. These are called asuri sampad, demoniac divine qualities and demoniac qualities. You are a combination of both. The good news is we can change that proportion. We can increase our divine qualities and we can gradually reduce and eliminate negative qualities. In order to do that, we have to know the distinction. What are divine qualities and what are demoniac qualities? This chapter describes both qualities. This is called Daiva Asura Sampat. Divine qualities, demoniac qualities. Vibhaga means division, classification, or showing the difference between these two. That is this chapter. So we began the first verse last time. The Lord says, śrībhagavānuvāca, first verse in chapter 16. Abhayaṃ sattvasaṃśuddhirjñānayogavyavasthitiḥ dānaṃ damaśca yajñaśca svādhyāyastapa ārjavam. This and the next two slokas, the first three verses in this chapter, they contain a list of a large number of divine qualities. We are familiar with earlier similar lists. In the second chapter, at the end of second chapter, Bhagavan Shri Krishna gave a long list of virtues of a sage of steady wisdom, Sita Prajna, in response to Arjuna's question. In verse 54 of chapter 2, Arjuna asked the question, what are the qualities of a sage of steady wisdom? A divine person, a holy person who has experienced God's presence. If you can identify such a person, then we can emulate such a person. Yes, we can do the same thing that he does, how he reacts to situations, varying situations in life. We can follow his example. He serves as a role model for all of us, a holy person. What are his qualities? That was Arjuna's question in chapter 2, verse 54. 55 onwards until the end of chapter, verse 71 or 72, Bhagavan Shri Krishna gives a long list of qualities of such a person. That is one place where we saw a big list of virtues. Then again, in the 12th chapter, from verses 13 to 19, those 7 verses, Bhagavan Shri Krishna gives a list of qualities of a devotee of God. We all think we have devotion to God, and we have to some extent. But true devotion, as described by Narada, is rare. How to acquire those pure devotion? What are the virtues of such a devotee who has pure devotion to God? Those are described in the 12th chapter, another list of virtues of a devotee of God. And in the 14th chapter, we saw a short list of qualities of a person who has transcended the three gunas. In that 14th chapter, we studied the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. No one is free from these three gunas, no exception. Very rarely you can come across a person who has transcended the three gunas. And the virtues of such a person, Triguna Atita means one who has transcended the three gunas. Those virtues are given in a short list in 14th chapter. Now in this chapter, the first three verses, chapter 16, verses 1 to 3, they contain a list of virtues of a person of divine qualities. Daivi sampada, divine virtues, which we all have to cultivate. This is what we call spiritual life. Spiritual life means practicing these virtues, purifying the mind. Once the mind is purified, made free from all impurities, then realization of God is imminent. He is already present within us. He is never absent. The Lord is always present within us. Thus we have seen the earlier chapters. I am present in the hearts of all, he has said several places. Now that his presence remains hidden from you because our minds are not completely pure. We have both good and bad impressions, and that's why we are unable to feel, experience the divine presence within us. Once the mind is purified, the obstacle to God realization is removed, and we experience divine presence within us, within everybody and everything also. That's why these lists are important. When Bhagavan Shri Krishna gives such lists, there are two reasons, two purposes with what we should do with this list. One purpose is description of a divine person. You can identify a person who has at least some of these qualities, if not all of these qualities. Then that is one, how to identify a person. In the Gospel, Sri Krishna was asked by a devotee. Sri Krishna often used to say, cultivate divine company, seek holy company, seek holy company. So, who is a holy person? How to know? How to identify a holy person? That question was asked of Sri Ramakrishna, and he gave a short answer. And what Sri Krishna is doing in the Gita is to give a long list of a holy person. Devotee, a sthitaprajna, sage of study wisdom, one who has transcended the three gunas, and one who has divine qualities. All these lists have one purpose is to enable us to identify such people, those who have these qualities. Description. Second purpose why these lists are given is more important. It's not enough to identify a person. We have to emulate that person. We have to do the same thing that person does. Virtues such as truthfulness, purity, all those virtues we have to actually practice. And when we see such a person having such qualities, it gives us motivation to practice these virtues ourselves. That is why second purpose why these lists are given is for us to practice these virtues and ourselves become holy and see, feel, experience God's presence. That these are two reasons why Sri Krishna often gives these lists. So the first list, the first three verses in this chapter 16 contain a list of 21 different virtues of a holy person. The first verse itself contains 9 virtues. We began that one. So let us go to verse number 1. Abhayaṃ sattvasaṃśuddhirjñānayogavyavasthitiḥ dānaṃ damaśca yajñaśca svādhyāyastapa ārjavam. 9 things are mentioned here. 9 divine qualities. Daivi sampat. First one is abhayaṃ, that we did last time. Abhayaṃ means fear. There are not many people who are totally free from fear. There is always some fear for everyone. Even jnanis have sometimes some fear. That is a common experience, fear. The only person who can be totally free from all kinds of fear permanently is one who has either pure devotion to God or has self-knowledge. Self-knowledge means a person who has experienced his or her divine nature, not body-mind. 99+% people experience only their body and mind. A person who has transcended this body-mind consciousness and has experienced his divine nature. We are all divine potentially. That's what the Upanishad says. Vedanta says you are divine. You are that. Tattvamasi. Famous Mahavakyas in the Upanishads. I am that Brahman. I am Brahmasmi. I am that Brahman. I am not the body-mind. Tattvamasi, you are that. And this individual self is same as the Supreme Self. Ayam Atma Brahma. All these are in the Upanishad. That's the essence of Vedanta. And that a rare person has experienced these things. We all have read about it. But still we are experiencing body-mind only. Divine presence, we are not actually experiencing directly. We are trying to. We are in that process. So such a person only who has experienced the divine nature has transcended body-mind consciousness. Only such a person can be totally 100% permanently free from all kinds of fear. All other beings, not only people, animals also have fear. So what causes fear? That we saw last time. The moment we perceive a second entity besides the self, that is the source of fear. In the famous sentence in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, we are told, Dvitiya dvai bhayam bhavati. Dvitiya means second one. The moment you experience a second entity besides yourself, ourself, yourself with a yes, capital S, Atman. That moment we are subject to fear from the second entity which we perceive. Total fearlessness comes only when there is no other object besides the self. There is no other thing to be seen. There is no other thing to be heard from. There is no other thing to be thought about. That's famous statement in the Chandogya Upanishad, which Sanat Kumara says to Narada, is that state of unity of consciousness, only self, nothing else, no other object. That state alone confers total permanent freedom from fear. Yatra nānyat pashyati, nānyat shrunoti, nānyat vijanati sabhoma. That state of awareness where there is no second thing to be seen. There is no second thing to be heard from. And there is no second thing to be thought about. That state of total unity of consciousness, only self, nothing else. Then only a person is free from fear and all other blemishes. So that we saw last time, why fear comes. Now, there was a famous person named Bhartrhari. Many years ago, I gave a series of Sunday talks on Bhartrhari's teachings, gems from Bhartrhari. That Bhartrhari was a king and a poet and a scholar, Vedanti. So he composed 3 works, each containing 100 verses, Shatakam. So we are interested in the third one. The first one he composed was Sringara Shatakam. Those days, kings used to have enormous resources, only a king could command to enjoy all kinds of pleasures. And they did. And afterwards, they gave up everything and went to the forest for the third stage of life to spend their life in contemplation. So, in that was the first 100 verses. Sringara Shatakam describing the beauty of the human body, not interesting to us, not of interest to us. Second composition was Niti Shatakam. Niti means policy, how to behave appropriately in varying circumstances for people in different stages of life. 100 verses on that one, Niti Shatakam. The third one he composed was Vairagya Shatakam, if you can see this book. Vairagya Shatakam means, Vairagya means renunciation. Shatakam means 100 verses on renunciation. There, in one verse, Bhartrahari describes why fear is there and how to overcome fear and what confers fearlessness. So that is verse number 31 in this composition, Vairagya Shatakam. I'll read this one. Some of you have heard this one. I'll read the translation later. Bhoge roga bhayam kule chuti bhayam vitte nrapalad bhayam mane dainya bhayam bale ripu bhayam rupe jaraya bhayam shastre vadi bhayam gune khala bhayam kaye kratantad bhayam sarvam masta bhayanmitam bhavendranam vairagyameva bhayam. Beautiful poetry. He says, in enjoyment, bhoga, people try to enjoy all kinds of things, physical pleasure, sensory pleasures, food and other kinds of pleasure. When we enjoy, there's always the fear of losing health. Some disease will come. If you overindulge in any kind of enjoyment, that will lead to disease. If you eat all kinds of sweets every day without any limit or restraint, pizza, cheesecake, and all chocolate and this and that, all nice, tasty while eating. But then what happens? Disease shows up in the body. Similar other kinds of enjoyments. Kule chitibhayam. If a person enjoys a social status, kula, or of high birth in a very high family, like Kennedy family or some Bush family, all famous politicians like that one, kule chutibhayam, social status and approbation, public fame, everything, those will be very short-lived. Somebody else will come into the limelight and this person goes back to the womb of history. How many people remember Michael Jordan? At one time, he was the most famous person in the whole world. More people knew about Michael Jordan than they knew President Clinton. I read in a news item. President Clinton was so famous, but more people had heard about Michael Jordan than they had heard about number of people who had heard about Clinton. So famous. Now, how many people think about Michael Jordan? That is the fame is always only for 5 seconds. Kule chute bayam vitte drapalad bayam. Vitta means money. Drapala means the king. Those days, before democracy came, kings used to rule the kingdom. And if there was a rich person, the king was always expecting money from him in the form of taxes or donation or something. So now IRS comes after. If you have a lot of money, IRS is after you. You have to pay tax, but they somehow escape. Richest people pay least tax. This is a different story. Vitte nripalad bhayam Mane dainya bhayam. In honor, mana means honor. Mane dainya, the fear of humiliation, fear of losing. Then bale ripu bhayam, power. Bala means power. If a person is powerful by virtue of his or her position or wealth, fear of losing that one is always there. Whatever you have comes with fear of loss. Rupe jaraya bhayam. Rupa means physical beauty. Physical beauty is how long does it last? Only for some time. There are people whose profession's livelihood depends upon their physical well-being, like people in show business, those who do modeling and bodybuilders. These people, their bodies are the main thing. The body has to be in perfect condition, top. If there is any blemish, then they don't have the earning power. It endangers their livelihood. So for such people, those who cherish beauty and youth, the fear of losing it is temporary. After some years, they lose it. We can see Olympic gymnasts, they retire when they are in their late teens, 19, 20 years, they have to retire because their performance depends on the agility and strength of the body. That only lasts for some time. After many years, they will be able to perform in Olympics, and then they're short-lived. Afterwards, the body loses the ability to perform at that level. So that is fear of loss, a fear of loss of everything. Rupe, Jaraya, Mayam, old age. Old age will come, beauty will go away, youth will go away. Shastreva, Devayam. In scriptural erudition, the fear of opponents. In earlier days, there used to be scholarly debates, and the scholar who knew more would defeat the scholar who knew less in a debate, and then he would lose his position. The famous debate between Shankaracharya and Sureshwaracharya, Mandana Mishra, that we know about that debate. Then Shankaracharya won in the debate, and Mandana Mishra was a householder. He had to give up his position as a householder. He had to become a disciple of Shankaracharya. That was the condition. Shastre vadabhayam gune khalabhayam. In virtue, the fear of competitors. Kaye kratantad bhayam. In the body, the fear of death. As long as we have the body, you are afraid of death. Fear of death is very common. That will come someday. All the things of this world, sarvam mastu bhayanvitam bhuvendranam. Bhuvi means in this world, sarvam mastu, all things, everything that we have, including our body and our mind. We may lose the ability to remember things, old age, memory loss, all these things will happen. Whatever we have, sarvam mastu bhayanvitam, it comes with fear of loss. Only one thing confers total fearlessness. What is that one? Vairagyameva abhayaṃ. Abhayaṃ means freedom from fear, absence of fear. Vairagya alone confers freedom from fear. What is vairagya? That will come later in this next verse. Vairagya means total detachment from all objects, including the body, onwards, outwards, everything. Because things that we have are temporary. All associations are temporary. Our association with the body is temporary because body is something that we have. So body is not something that we are. Body is something that we have. Vedanta says. So anything that I have that's not me, separate from me, is something that I possess, and that thing which was not there before is there for some time now and will go away from me. Separation is inevitable. All associations with anything and everything are temporary and the object will be lost. Sarvam mustu bhayanvitam. That's why everything that we have comes with the loss of fear. The only thing that grants total permanent fearlessness, vairagyam. You may have everything, but I can be free from fear of loss if I'm not attached to them. So it's recommending vairagya. That is abhayaṃ. Now we go to the second quality in verse number 1. Sattvasaṃśuddhirjñānayogavyavasthitiḥ. Sattva means, the word sattva has different meanings depending on the context. Sattva means sattva guna. The three guna, sattva, rajas, tamas, that is one meaning of sattva. The second meaning of sattva is, sattva means any object in general. The third meaning of sattva is mind. Here, the meaning of sattva is mind. It's an unusual meaning in this context. Sattvasaṃśuddhirjñānayogavyavasthitiḥ. Samshuddhi means purity of mind. This is an extensive topic. We have spoken about it on many occasions. How to keep the mind pure. Basic requirement for spiritual progress, purity of mind. Then we have to know what are the impurities of mind, so we can try to remove them. The impurities of mind are, Sri Krishna talks about 8 fetters, ashtapasha. Other scriptures talk about the 6 enemies. Ari Shadvarga. Ari means enemy. Shat means 6. 6 enemies commonly known are Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. What they are? Kama means lust, all kinds of desire, lust. Second is anger, Krodha, anger. Third one is greed, Lobha, greed for material things. Some people are very greedy for fame. Some people want more property, more money. Kama, Krodha, Lobha. Moha, delusion, inability to think properly, wrong way of thinking, mistaking one thing for the other, delusion, moha. And then fifth one is mada. Mada means pride. A person who doesn't have much can be still proud of the few things that he has. Pride does not necessarily depend upon how much a person has. It's a mindset. A person has $1 million, he is so proud, oh, I have $1 million. A person has $10 billion, he doesn't make much of his wealth. So pride is a defect of the, you have to overcome that one. Matsarya. Sixth one is jealousy. Somebody has more than I have, then I become jealous. If I have more than somebody else, I become proud. These are opposite qualities. Pride and jealousy are opposite qualities. If I have something more and you have something less, then I am proud. And if you have something more, I have something less, then I am jealous. You have more, I have less. So these are all blemishes. And fear is also a blemish. Sattvasaṃśuddhi means we should strive, spiritual seekers must strive hard to become free from all these blemishes. That is the whole of spiritual practice. Make the mind pure by whatever means. Many different paths are there, many different means are there. Sattvasaṃśuddhirjñānayogavyavasthitiḥ. Yesterday was Tuesday. Mataji was doing the class, and for Tuesday morning class, they are using this book, Spiritual Talks. These are teachings of Holy Mother and other disciples of Sri Krishna Tulyananda Swami. There is a short paragraph which describes the purity of mind. So this on page 264 to 65 of Spiritual Talks. I read. The senses, the mind, and the intellect. We shall have to capture all these outposts of consciousness and thus conquer lust, anger, and avarice, greed. These are but different forms of the same thing. They are the eternal enemies of the jnani and destroyers of knowledge and wisdom. Join the senses to the Lord. That is the way to teach the senses a lesson. Purity of mind, sattvasaṃśuddhi means making the mind free from all these blemishes, lust, anger, greed, pride, jealousy, and delusion, and fear. This can be done in many different ways. Many of these we have discussed before. The simplest way to keep the mind pure, free from all impurities, is to constantly practice constant recollection of God, remembrance, by repeating God's name, by a mantra, or chanting some hymn, devotional hymn or something. Those are simpler ways to practice constant purity of mind. If you are thinking of God's name, visualizing God's form, then impure thoughts will not come at the same time. This was the method Swami Adbhutananda gave. Somebody asked him, Latu Maharaj Adbhutananda, he was not a scholar, but by the grace of Sri Ramakrishna and his own unparalleled spiritual practice, extreme renunciation, and spiritual practice, Swami Adbhutananda became Jnani. Devotion and Jnana both came to him. So somebody asked him, Maharaj, how to, all these bad thoughts come to me and bother me all the time. Lustful thoughts and other evil thoughts come to me. How to overcome them? Latu Maharaj said, look at the picture of Sri Ramakrishna and repeat his name. All the evil thoughts will fly away. Simple method. There's nothing complicated. Some people carry in their purse a small picture of their chosen ideal. Sometimes they carry a picture of their family, husband, wife, children. But in addition to that, we can carry a picture of our chosen deity. That is more helpful. So we can take out that picture and look at that picture and repeat his name. At that moment, mind becomes pure. Simple procedure. And other methods are there to purify the mind. Abhayaṃ sattvasaṃśuddhirjñānayogavyavasthitiḥ. In the commentary, Shankara says about sattvasaṃśuddhirjñānayogavyavasthitiḥ, sattvasya antahkaranasya samshuddhihi samyavahareshu paravanchana amaya anrutadi parivarjanam. Nice explanation of purity of mind. He says, Sattvasya antakarana. Sattva means mind, inner instrument. Antakarana, inner instrument, is the mind. Of the mind, samshuddhi, purity, means samyavahareshu, in all our transactions with ourselves and with other people, animals, plants, and things. With work. Whatever you do, with whom we are dealing in all the circumstances, paravanchana, parivarjanam. Paravanchana means cheating others. Vanchana means cheating. By thought, word, or deed, we should not even think of cheating somebody or something. You can cheat animals also. We are gullible. No thought of cheating. Total honesty, clarity, sincerity, and transparency. No cheating anybody. Even in dubious ways, indirect ways, it is possible to cheat people. This should not be done. That is one aspect of purity of mind. Paravanchana, parivarjanam. Second one is amaya. Amaya means deceit. Same thing. Deceiving other people in subtle ways. By saying something which may be partially true, but making that the main thing and giving wrong impression somehow, conveying wrong impression, those things should not be done. Some people do it to gain some advantage, benefit. That's not good. Amaya. Anrutam means dishonesty, telling lies, should never be done. Sri Ramakrishna said, for the Kali Yuga, truthfulness alone is the spiritual discipline. All the Upanishads and other scriptures, Puranas, and teachings of saints, they have placed very high value, importance to the practice of truthfulness. If you do all other things but not truthful, nothing will bear fruit. That will come later in the second verse. Truthfulness will come. That is sattvasaṃśuddhirjñānayogavyavasthitiḥ, parivarjanam, giving up all these things. Then the third virtue is yajñaśca. We are still in the first line of first verse. Yajñaśca. That means persistence in the practice of knowledge of the self. Here, knowledge here means not worldly knowledge. That's also necessary for it has a place in our life. Knowledge of some field of knowledge we have to have necessary for this life. But here in this context, knowledge means knowledge of the self. All the scriptures, and Swamiji also said, each soul is potentially divine. We're all divine potentially. Animals also, plants also, inanimate objects also, only He appearing in these forms. But people can be more conscious of that one. People can actually realize their divinity. Animals and plants cannot do. They're not equipped to do that one. So our divinity lies hidden within us. No one is exempted. Even the wicked man has divinity hidden within him. Only it's not visible. That from the study of Upanishads and other scriptures, teachings of great saints. So that has to be kept in mind. Jnana yoga means, vyavasthiti means steadfast practice of knowledge of the self. We should never forget that God is within me. In simpler dualistic terms, I can say, instead of saying self-knowledge, I am Atman, which is difficult for a majority of people, I can say we should never lose sight of the presence of God within me, in everybody and everything. Whatever I am dealing with, divine presence is there. That constant awareness, practice of constant awareness of God's presence, that is Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitiḥ. Here, Jnanam is mentioned, self-knowledge, but same thing applies to devotion. Constantly remembering, practicing constant recollection of divine presence in all and everything, including oneself and everybody, including inanimate objects. Practice of the presence of God. You are familiar with that one, Brother Lawrence's practice. That is the third one. Abhayaṃ sattvasaṃśuddhirjñānayogavyavasthitiḥ. Next one, dānaṃ. This is a common virtue that we all are familiar with. Dānaṃ means charity. Here Shankara says for dānaṃ, Devi Satviki, there is dānaṃ. Yatha Shakti sammibhagaha annādīnām. That means dānaṃ here is charity is a sharing of food and other things according to one's resources. Yatha Shakti. The topic of dana has come in the Upanishads and also in the Gita elsewhere, several places in the Gita. One has to practice charity. Everybody cannot give large donations. Some people give $1 million donations to certain institutions. People cannot afford. Many people don't have that much money. Whatever we have, that has to be shared. That came in the third chapter. When the Lord created this universe, He gave instruction on how to lead our lives. He said, whatever you have to share with other beings. And He said in the third chapter, a person who eats his food by himself, not sharing with anybody else, such a person is eating his own sin. Bhunjate te tvagam papa ye pachanti atmakaranat. Third chapter. One person lives extremely selfish life, taking care of oneself, preparing one's own food, eating, and not sharing with anybody or anything. Such a person is eating his own sin, which is very bad. We should not. We can't all share big things, but can be done in small ways. Everybody can do. In our parent generation, I used to see, now also people do that one. Before they eat a meal, they say a prayer, Gayatri Mantra, and then sprinkle water on the food, say a prayer, and then they take a little bit of food, a morsel, or even a small quantity, keep it aside, and then eat the food. After that, they take their food kept aside, take it out and give it to the birds and other animals, dogs and birds. Some people do it before eating. Before eating, they take a morsel of food, take it outside. This is as in India. Now it is here difficult to practice in that way. Different ways we can do. Offer it to the birds, animals, and then come back and eat. So it's a simple, humble way of sharing things. Everybody cannot share big things. Dānaṃ. The word dānaṃ has come several times in the Bhagavad Gita. Let me see. Dānaṃ. In the Upanishad, the discipline, the virtue of dānaṃ has been extolled, and much importance is given to that one. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is a very nice passage. Some of you have heard it. There, the sage says how to practice charity. When you give something to somebody, how to give. Three things are important. That will come in the Gita. Desha, Kala, Patra. We'll discuss them. Desha means the environment, place or environment where charity is given. What we give should be given in secretly, not publicly, so everybody can notice I'm giving. Silently, without making much fuss, you should give whatever we give. Desha. Kala, the timing must be right. If you give food to a person who just had a big meal, what you can't eat that one. Give food to a hungry person at the right time. Timing is important. And then third thing is patra. Desha kala patra. Patra means the recipient. The person who receives the charity, that must be a needy person who can use the thing that we give. So in Christmas time and birthday, people think, oh, what should I give? That person has everything. What can we give to someone who has already everything, so many things? But you still give something, and that person has how many of the same thing? You give a tithe or something, and how many tithes a person can use? So it will be there in the closet somewhere. He may recycle it, give to somebody, he may whatever. So you should give something which is meaningful, which is useful to the recipient. The recipient must be the right person. If a hungry person, beggar comes, then you give food or a couple of dollars, something that is meaningful. But if you give $2 to a millionaire, he doesn't care about the $2. He's not the right recipient. The recipient must be right. Patra. So all these things are given, and with what attitude we should give charity is described in the Taittiriya Upanishad. There nice passage comes. Shraddhaya deyam, ashraddhaya adeyam, hriya deyam, bhiya deyam, shriya deyam, sammida deyam. Like this. Many requirements are there on how to give charity. First is Shraddhaya Dayam. Shraddha means with earnestness, not disdainfully, oh, I have to give, not like that one, with love, with great love and earnestness, and with humility, we have to give. Shraddhaya Deyam, Ashraddhaya Adeyam. You should not give without earnestness, opposite of that. Shriya Deyam, we should give according to our means. If a person makes $200,000 a year, and he goes to some temple or Vedanta city and puts $1 in the donation box or 50 cents donation box, it is not appropriate. According to your means, you have to give. Shriya Deyam, Hriya Deyam. Hriya means with modesty, not with pride. Swami Vivekananda says in the Karma Yoga lectures, when you give something to somebody, you should not stand on a pedestal and say, hey, poor man, I'm giving you 5 cents to help you. There's very wrong attitude with which to give charity. With humility, the person who gives must be thankful to the person who receives. Usually we expect the other way. If I give something to somebody, I expect that person must be thankful to me. If I don't get thank you note, I'll become unhappy. No, I should be thankful to the person who is there to receive my charity, because when I give charity, I'm enriching myself. That person's life may not be altered much. One meal, if you give a hungry person, but for a few hours, his hunger goes away. But again, we cannot solve the problem. We cannot improve the world by our charity. That's an important point to remember. There's a very nice lecture that Swami Vivekananda gave in the Karma Yoga book. The title of lecture is "We Help Ourselves, Not the World." Swami gave a Sunday talk on that one, I think last year. We help ourselves, not the world. When we think we are helping others by giving charity or doing service, we think we are helping the world. No. We are the ones who benefit from that service or that charity. Because when you do something, some service, you give some charity, we become more selfless. Our selfishness becomes less. Not mine, but thine. That attitude should be there when we give something to do some service. So that service or charity that we do in the proper attitude makes us a better person, makes the giver a better person. That other recipient's life may or may not be changed substantially. So Swamiji said, this world is a curly, the curly tail of a dog. So many reformers and kings and great people have tried to help this world, improve the world. Reformers over centuries, it has remained actually same. Problems will be there, poverty will be there, disease will be there, no matter how much service we do. But why we have to do service? Because it enriches, makes us a better person. This is a spiritual practice. Improvement in the world may or may not come. That's not our goal. We can't improve the world. The world is like the curly tail of a dog, Swamiji says in the Karma Yoga lecture. So we should do service and charity in order that for us to become unselfish, have love for all other beings, see divine presence in all the beings. That is the purpose of giving charity. That makes a person a better person. It's a big step in spiritual life, becoming unselfish. The more unselfish we become, the closer we move towards God. And in limiting case, when we become totally unselfish, what happens? We become one with God. This is what Swamiji said. There's a very famous sentence in the Karma Yoga lecture. Only 3 words are there. I want you to remember this sentence, Swamiji's sentence. Yes, some of you have heard it. Swamiji said, unselfishness is God. This is what he wrote. The more unselfish we become, the closer we approach God. In the limiting case, we become one with Him, one with the Lord. And we totally give up our selfishness. Selfishness means the focusing attention on this individual personality, body, mind. If that goes away, after the little self becomes merged in the greater self, in the divine, that you call liberation or salvation or mukti or whatever. So a power of charity. Dānaṃ, viyādeyam, samvidādeyam. Viyādeyam means we should give it modesty. If I give something to somebody, then I should not be overconfident that, oh, I'm giving a very useful thing that person can use. Not like that. I should be a little bit hesitant. I've given this thing to him or her. Will this help that person or not? To what extent? I'm not sure. Maybe it's not sufficient, may not be right. Timing may not be right. That we are kind of little bit modesty must be there, not with pride. Samvidādeyam. Samvit means empathy. That person needs something, then knowing that person's need, how this can be used, knowing that with empathy we have to give charity. All these, so many different rules are there about charity. Dānaṃ. So we are still in the first verse. And so many 9 different things are there in just 2 lines in the first verse. In this 17th chapter, there are 3 verses in the Gita. We'll study that when we go to next chapter. These are verses number 20, 21, 22. These 3 verses in the next chapter, they describe the 3 kinds of dāna. No, 20, 21, 22. 17th chapter. Sattvic dāna, rajasic dāna, tamasic dāna. Sattva, rajas, tamas. Our attitude can be sattvic, rajasic, tamasic when we do charity. We should always try to do charity in a sattvic way. Sattvic dāna we have to do. How to do that one will come later. But too much detail it will come again in the 17th chapter, so we'll skip that one. Simply it means with the to the proper recipient at the proper time, under the proper circumstances, environment. Charity has to be done without expecting anything in return. That's the main thing. You should not have expectation that I'm giving this gift on Christmas, at Christmas or some birthday, and when my birthday comes, that person should give me something equivalent to that or similar to that. That expectation should not be there. Once you give, forget about it. We should not even think about what you are given. What he has done with my gift, as he is using it himself or herself, given to somebody, should not be thought. No thought about the thing given. Once it leaves your hand, you are free. Total detachment. That's the spirit of dānaṃ. All these things will come later. Now we go back to the first verse in chapter 16. Dānaṃ, dama. Next discipline is dama, means control of the sense organs. 5 sense organs of perception, gyanendriyas, 5 sense organs of action, motor organ. All these 10 organs are to be constantly monitored, and their activities must be monitored and controlled, directed in the proper direction. For example, God has given us eyes to see. Sometimes you need glasses. God has given ears to hear. Sometimes you need hearing aid, things like that. But these abilities are given. Gift of God, gift from God. How should we use them? We should use our eyes to see only what is uplifting, pure and holy, and not all kinds of things that are available in the media. All kinds of extremely bad things are available for us to see. You should exercise our discretion. Viveka. See only what is uplifting, what is holy. Sri Ramakrishna said, keep the picture of holy people and gods and goddesses in your room. So when you look at them, the mind is connected to them. At that moment, you are in communion with the divine, and you see a picture of God, your chosen idea. It can be any picture. That is how we are used sense organ. Dhamma means controlling sense organ. They have a natural tendency to go out and seek contact with all kinds of sense objects, hoping to get pleasure from that contact. That tendency is natural in all beings. That should be curbed. That should be controlled. That comes in the Upanishad. We'll study that in detail next time. So, dānaṃ, dama. Then yajña, sacrifice. Everything should be done as sacrifice. Svādhyāya, study of scriptures. Tapa, austerities, 3 kinds of austerities. Austerities of body, speech, and mind. How to do them. And ārjavam, straightforwardness. The word ārjavam has come so many times in the Gita. Satyam, Dhamma, all these things have come. Before I stop, if you want to find out where a certain word has occurred in the Gita, for example, in this first verse, we came across the word dānaṃ. Dānaṃ is charity. If you want to know where else in the Gita, Shri Krishna has talked about charity, which chapter, which verse, or any other word, ārjavam, then there is a tool to do that one. There is a list of all the words occurring in the Gita arranged alphabetically. If a word occurs in 4 different places, it is listed with 4 different marks, location mark, which chapter, which verse. For example, the word ārjavam will come. Ārjavam is straightforwardness, transparency. If you want to know where the word ārjavam has come, then you go to this list, alphabetical list of words. This is called a concordance. All the words, significant words in the Gita, are listed alphabetically and the location is given. If you go to ārjavam, long arm, it's a big list. ārjavam, aprabhi, todvam, arhaso. Such a big list. ārjavam. ārabhati ārjavam ārabhati avartate ashu aharaha. Where is ārjavam? I just saw it. Pardon. Bear with me for 1 second. Atmaritihi. Artha. Atma. It's so difficult to use this. Agachet. I saw that one. Sorry, I'm taking your time. Atma. Ārjavam. Adi. Ayara. Aru. Austerity. Shouldn't be so difficult. Acharya, 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 or Bhagavan, Atma, 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 Darsha. Now here it is. Ārjavam. 1, 2, 3, 4 places it has come. It has come, chapter 13, verse number 7. 7 to 11 in chapter 13 was description of the 20 different virtues we studied. There ārjavam is one of them. 16.1, which we are studying now. 17.14, describing the austerities of the body, physical aspect. Ārjavam is one of them. 18.42, it comes. So all those places, the same idea has come. Then you can relate them and study them together. Ārjavam. Like this, you can use this list. This is called index to words, also called concordance. It's a long list of words, index to words. This is in the book Bhagavad Gita by Swami Brahmarupananda. Other books also have, not every book has, concordance to the words occurring in the Gita. Very useful tool. Now let us close, I say the closing prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May there be peace within us all. May all be happy. May all be free from ill health and other diseases and problems. May all realize and practice what is noble and auspicious. May no one be subject to any kind of misery. May there be peace in our hearts. May there be peace and harmony amongst all beings. And may there be peace everywhere in nature. Hari Om Tat Sat Sarvam Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Thank you all and stay well. God willing, see you next week.